Hello everyone.
Hi Jyotsna.
Hi. Okay, in 1 minute, we just wait for a minute more and then we'll get started. Okay, we can get started, Shailaja. Just start.
Okay. I think it's Nidhi, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Bhuya eva mahabaho Shunu me paramam vachaha Yatteham priyamanaya Bhaktyami hitakamyaya Name vidussurayanaha Prabhavam namaharshayah Ahamadirhi devanam Maharshīnām ca sarvashah.
यो मामजम् अनादिं च वेत्ति लोकमहेश्वरम् असम्मूढाः समर्थ्येषु सर्वपापैः प्रमुच्यते बुद्धिर्ज्ञानमसम्मोहः क्षमा सत्यं दमः शमः सुखं दुःखं भवो भावो भयं च भयमेव च
अहिंसा समता त्विष्टः तपोदानं यशो यशः भवन्ति भावा भूतानां मत्त एव पृथग्विदाः महर्षय सप्त पूर्वे चत्वारो मनवस्तथा मद्भावा मानसा जाता येषां लोक इमाः प्रजाः.
Preeti, only one correction. Tushtihi. Did you say that?
तिष्ठिः.
Tushtihi. Okay. Ahimsa, samata, tushti. Okay. Yeah, continue.
एतां विभूतिं योगं च मम यो वेति तत्त्वतः सौविकम्पेन योगेन युज्यते नात्र संशयः अहं सर्वस्य प्रभवः मत्तः सर्वं प्रवर्तते इति मत्वा भजन्ते माम् उदाभावसमन्विताः
मच्चिता मत्तः प्राणा बोधयन्तः परस्परं कथयञ्च मां नित्यं तुष्यन्ति च रमन्ति च तेषां सततयुक्तानां भजतं प्रीतिपूर्वकं ददामि बुद्धियोगं तं येन मामुपयन्ति ते.
Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Bharata. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Can you say that?
ददामि बुद्धियोगं तं
Buddhi yogam tam. Correct. Yeah. Continue. Yena
येन मामुपयन्ति ते.
upayanti te. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
तेषामेवानुकम्पितम् अहं ज्ञानजं तमः नाशयाम्यात्मा भव सत्तः ज्ञानं दीपेन स्वता अर्जुनवाच परं ब्रह्म परं धाम पवित्रं परं भवान् पुरुषं शाश्वतं दिव्यम् आदिदेवामजं विभुम् आहुस्त्वं श्रयः सर्वे देवशर् नारदस्तथा असितो देवलो व्यासः स्वयं चैव ब्रवीषि मे.
Okay, before we go on to chapter 4, what was chapter 10 about? Anybody remembers? Come on. Anybody? What was the name of chapter 10?
The Divine Glories.
Divine Glories, Vibhuti Yoga. So what did you learn in this chapter? Any of the Divine Glories? One of them? Okay. So anyway, basically everything that you see around in nature, and then you're excited, you feel happy seeing, they're all divine glories of God. So this chapter, the Yoga of Divine Glories, it says the divine glories are described so that the mind of the devotee may turn to God at all times and through all things. To begin with, a devotee sees the glories of God in the majestic things of nature, the sun, the oceans. Everybody likes going to the beach?
Yes.
Yes, right?
I
Okay.
am not that good with it, so.
You don't like?
Well, I don't like swimming, but walking on it, I like.
You only just walking on it. Okay. The Himalayas. So when we say Himalayas, any of these mountains, some of them have snow. You like to see that, right? Okay. But first you start looking at that, and then those are all glories of God. Okay. And even in the smallest objects, you see a butterfly. So beautiful, right? It's a creation of God. So it talks about all the vibhutis, and we went over that in detail. There are plenty of divine glories that we went over in chapter 10. Okay, so we did part of chapter 10. Let's move on to chapter 4. Continue. Bihan?
I think Vihan, yeah.
Yeah.
श्रीभगवानुवाच अयं विवस्ते योगं प्रोक्तव्यम् अहम् अव्ययं विवस्वान् मनवे पहर्त माण्डुविक् स्वकिव्रवित् एवं पवां पवा प्राप्तम् इमां वाजवशयो विदु सा काले नेह महता योगा नष्ट पवां तपा. स एव यं मयतेद्य योगः प्रोक्तः पुरातनः भक्तोऽसि मे सखा चेति रहस्यं ह्येतदुत्तमम्.
अर्जुनोवाच अपरं भवतो जन्म परं जन्म विवस्वतः कथा मे तत्विजानीयां त्वत्मदो प्रोक्तवानिति. श्रीभगवानुवाच बहूनि मे व्यतीतानि जन्मानि तव चार्जुन तान्यहं वेद सर्वाणि ज्ञात्वा वेद परन्तप
Shweta.
अचोऽपि सानव्ययात्मा भूतानामीश्वरोऽपि सन् प्रकृतिं स्वामधिष्ठाय सम्भवाम्यात्मा मायया यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानम् अधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम्।
Anika.
परित्राणाय साधूनां विनाशाय च दुष्कृतां धर्म संस्थापनार्थाय सम्भवामि युगे युगे जन्म कर्म च मे दिव्यम् एवं यो वेति तत्त्वतः त्यक्त्वा देहं पुनर्जन्म नैति माम् ऐति अर्जुन।
Sushant.
Vitaragabhaya krodhaha mahamaya mam uprashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa uttamadbhavam agata ye yata mam prabhanyante tanstataiva bhajamyaham mama varta manuvartante manushaya varta sarvasaha.
काङ्क्षन्ता कर्मणं सिद्धिं यजन्ता इह देवता किस्पिरं हि मनुष्ये लोके सिद्धिर्भवति कर्मजा चातुर्वर्ण्यं मया सृष्टं गुणाकर्म विभागशः तस्य कर्तरममापि मम विद्या कर्तरम् अव्ययम्।
न मां कर्माणि लिम्पन्ति न मे कर्मफले स्पृहा इति मां यो विजानाति कर्मभिः न स बध्यते एवं ज्ञात्वा कृतं कर्म पूर्वैरपि मुमुक्षुभिः कुरु कर्मैव तस्मात् त्वं पूर्वैः पूर्वतरं कृतम्।
Okay, that's where we had stopped, right? Okay, let's continue further. Okay. Kim karma kimakarmeti
Kim karma kimakarmeti
kavayopyatra mohitaha
kavayopyatra mohitaha
tatte karma pravakshyami
tatte karma pravakshyami
yajñātvā mokṣase shubhat.
yajñātvā moksha se shubhat.
Kim karma kimakarmeti
Kim karma kimakarmeti
kavayopyatra mohitaha
kavayopyatra mohitaha
tatte karma pravakshyami
tatte karma pravakshyami
yajñātvā mokṣase shubhat.
yajñātvā moksha se shubhat.
कर्मणो ह्यपि बोद्धव्यम्
कर्मणो ह्यपि बोद्धव्यम्
बोद्धव्यं च विकर्मणः
बोद्धव्यं च विकर्मणः
अकर्मणश्च बोद्धव्यम्
अकर्मणश्च बोद्धव्यम्
गहना कर्मणो गतिः
गहना कर्मणो गतिः
कर्मणो ह्यपि बोद्धव्यम्
कर्मणो ह्यपि बोद्धव्यम्
बोद्धव्यं च विकर्मणः
बोद्धव्यं
कर्मणः
अकर्मणश्च बोद्धव्यम्
अकर्मणश्च बोद्धव्यम्
गहना कर्मणो गतिः
गहना कर्मणो गतिः
कर्मण्यकर्म यः पश्येत्
कर्मण्यकर्म यः पश्येत्
अकर्मणि च कर्म यः
अकर्मणि च कर्मण्यः
स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु
स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु
स युक्तः कृत्स्न कर्मकृत्
कर्मकृत्
कर्मण्यकर्म यः पश्येत्
कर्मण्यकर्म यः पश्येत्
अकर्मणि च कर्म यः
अकर्मणि च कर्म यः
स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु
स बुद्धिमान् मनुष्येषु
स युक्तः कृत्स्न कर्मकृत्
कर्मकृत्.
Okay, coming to the meaning of these three verses. So the first verse says that we keep talking about karma here, vikarma and akarma. I mentioned it at the beginning of this chapter also, and we'll talk about it a little more today. Even wise men are confused about what karma and akarma are. Karma is action, akarma is inaction. Therefore, Krishna says, I will decisively declare to you the nature of karma and akarma, knowing which you will be free from the evil of the world process. So we keep talking about karma and karma yoga, right? So what's karma yoga?
Doing what you're supposed to do without expecting anything back in return.
Without expecting anything back in return. Okay, let's continue further. And okay, so is it very easy to do that without expecting anything back in return?
No, it is not easy.
It's not easy. So there are tricks how to get to that level. So it's a little bit told here. Okay. So the next verse tells you, one must understand the nature of karma, action, vikarma, special action, and akarma, inaction, because truly they are very difficult, these ways of karma to understand. Okay, so then the last verse that we learned says, one who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is wise among men. He is a yogi and therefore has performed all that is to be performed. So now this is a very tough verse to understand. So vikarma, we said, is, I don't know if any of you remember what vikarma is. Anybody remembers?
Special action?
Special action, yes, we said that. Now, what does that special action mean? We discussed this when I started with this chapter. So basically, it is putting your heart and soul in what you do. So that is vikarma. So to reach that point of not expecting, you just can't do that. Once you start doing any work, right, you do a homework. So you do a homework with the intention that your mom makes you something that you like or gets you a toy. So then there is expectation right there started. But you say, oh, this is so nice. I'm enjoying doing this homework. As you're doing that, you don't even realize you do the homework, right? So the vikarma is that portion, trying to enjoy what you're doing. Okay. And then you reach this akarma state. And I explained this about sages and saints who have that state where I told you about Swamiji, where you praise him, people praise him. So he says it all goes to God. So nothing affects him, right? He doesn't start feeling, oh, I'm great, I did something. So, and this verse is is quite difficult to understand, and I'm trying to explain a little bit what I understand, but we can read deeper into it. So basically, if you think of a sage, and if you have seen any sage, you have all come, many of you have come to the ashram with me to see Swami Jyotirmayananda, and you can think of any other sage or Ramana Maharshi or Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, anybody. So basically, it feels like they are doing nothing. They are doing nothing. It feels like inaction, but there is a lot of action. Mentally, they are wishing good for the world. With their thought waves, they can do a lot. On the other way, they may be doing a lot of inaction. This Swamiji may be cooking, Swamiji may be lecturing, but mentally he is like a witness. Nothing is affecting him. So there is action, but there is behind the scenes inaction. So this is not very easy to understand, but just think about it. I have also been thinking, reflecting on that, and we have to reach that state where, like they say, think of a mother, right? So she has a baby on one side, and there is milk on the stove. So she has one of her eye looking at that, is it going to boil? And the other is looking at the eye. So constantly there is one thought, but it's not the fact that you're multitasking or something like that, but we are talking here rooted in Brahman, basically. So we are constantly thinking of God and going about with our activities. So that's what I mentioned, that example, to tell you that the constant focus is one, that God, and then you're doing other activities. Okay, so now but we will reflect on this further on and as the chapter goes on. But now I have a little something different for you planned for today. It just came about and I thought of doing that. The remaining 20 minutes of our class, instead of the Lalita Sahasranama, we have a guest at home. He's a friend of Vivek. You had all met, or some of you had met one other friend of Vivek from Nepal, Suman. And this is another friend of his. His name is Abhishkar. And it's a very motivational story, his own life. And he can probably tell you and give some advice to you kids. He was like a refugee from Bhutan, and then they moved to Nepal, and then ended up in the United States. And he was lucky, fortunate, and he worked hard, and he got admission in MIT, and he graduated from there, and he works at Microsoft. So he was in Florida, and he's visiting us, and he spent some time with us. So he was here and wanted to just stay for some time. So I thought it's a nice time for him to talk to you, and you can ask him any question, or it's to believe in your dreams and achieve things, although it has to be like karma yoga, not with too much expectations. But I'll let Abhishkar talk to you kids, okay? And some of you, if you can, turn on the camera, and then you can, he can see whom he's talking to if you want to, but I'll let him talk to you, okay? Yeah, come. 20 minutes about you have, 3:40.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Let me see. Wow.
There are a couple of them, but
Hi. Hello.
It would be great if you turn on your camera if it's possible. I would love to see you all. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak. This is a pleasure. And first, I would like to say I'm very grateful to be speaking in front of you all. As it was mentioned above, I am a friend of Vivek. I graduated from MIT with him. So I could totally answer a lot of questions you might have about MIT. or computer science, or what it is like to work at Microsoft. But I could, I would love to share my story of how I got to where I am today. I am a software engineer at Microsoft. But I think you all would maybe enjoy hearing that story. So I'll leave some time for questions at the end. But to begin with, does everyone here know what refugee means? Raise your hand if you don't. Okay. They do the raise your hand feature, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can hear.
Okay, cool.
It's okay, you're okay.
Awesome. So I'll explain it anyways. A refugee is someone who was not allowed to live in the country of origin. So my parents, they were originally from Bhutan, but the country of Bhutan did not want them to stay in the country. So because of that, my parents, they have to forcefully be removed from Bhutan, and they had to live in a different country. It's Nepal. You might have heard of it. It's close to the north of India. And for almost 2 decades, which is 20 years, my parents lived in Nepal, the country of Nepal, as refugees, which means that they did not have a place to live. They lived in makeshift houses. They were huts made of bamboo sticks. And I was born in the refugee camps. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like, there was no running water, there was no electricity there, no computer, no TVs, no refrigerator, no running water. So I remember when I was young, like you all, I used to help carry water from this tap that was a communal tap for everyone. So we did not have faucets and sinks. We used to have to get a big bucket, take it all the way to the tap, which was 15-20 minutes of walking. We would walk there, fill up the bucket with water, bring that bucket back home for use. So to bathe or to cook food, so life was a little bit more difficult, but at times it was also really fun because everybody lived close to each other. So my friends would be just a few walks away. If I screamed from my house, my friend would hear me. So I, instead of going to my friend's house, I would just scream, "Do you want to play?" really loudly, and they would say yes, and I would just go join them. So it was a different kind of life, very different than what you all are probably used to. But ever since I was in the camps, I had a very strong desire to study. I was very curious. I'm sure all of you are very curious as well. I always wanted to learn more, and my parents, they also wanted to teach me, give me the opportunity to learn. So we went to the capital of Nepal, Kathmandu, which had more official schools. The place that I lived, the refugee camps did not have official schools. They were mostly makeshift schools. So I went to the capital of Nepal, which is Kathmandu, to study. And there I saw my parents struggle a lot to make ends meet, to do all the work to ensure that they could pay our it says the meeting will end in 10 minutes. Is that
that's okay.
Okay. So
continue.
Okay, yeah. So I realized that, and I worked really hard. But obviously, going into the capital was very expensive. My parents both had to work really hard just for my own admission fees, and on top of that, they were my sister. So financially, we were struggling a lot. And ultimately, we kind of had to go back to the refugee camps, which was a very sad moment because I had a desire to study. I valued education, but because of financial problems, we couldn't make that happen. But life has its own ways of making things work, I guess. Few months later, we heard of the news of this resettlement agency. I'm sure some of you have heard of the United Nations. United Nations recognized us as refugees, and they said that, oh, the refugees don't have a place to live. They cannot go back to their motherland, which is Bhutan, and they cannot continue to live here in the refugee camps in this situation. And they cannot be naturalized US citizens, Nepali citizens, because Nepal didn't want us either. So they came to a conclusion that they would tell us, they would give us an option to move to other countries, such as the United States, Australia, Canada, and all of these countries were first world countries, which are countries which are a lot more developed and have more sophisticated infrastructure for education, social systems, Medicare facilities, all of the nice conveniences that you enjoy in life now. And it was an easy decision for us. We said we wanted to go. So we came into the US in the state of Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. And there, obviously, you can imagine, coming from a place that did not have running water and electricity. And, the only time I had saw a TV was back in the Capitol. And even that was black and white. Right. So coming to the US was a big shock. I knew very little English. Just like when you read the Bhagavad Gita and you're reciting them, it's in Sanskrit. I'm sure it's not as easy to understand Sanskrit easily. Some of you may be really smart and understand some of it, but that's exactly how I felt when I was reading English initially. I had some idea because when I went to the capital, I knew some English, but it was still very difficult. And I did not have any friends I was my final year, 8th grade, like my last year of middle school. And when you don't have friends, you don't feel motivated and to go to school and study. But I realized that coming to the US was a great privilege, and I studied really hard. And there were some teachers that believed in me. They said, Abhishkar, you're really smart, you're really special, you should continue working really hard, you should take more classes, take difficult classes, and challenge yourself. And I believed in them. I was really good at math. So there's this one thing that was going for me. My English was not very strong, but numbers kind of made sense to me. So I kind of held on to that, and I continued working really hard. And I finally got into this IB program at my school, which is kind of, you might have heard APIB classes, some of you, if you're in middle school, maybe in high school. So my teacher pushed me to take that class, and I took it, and the class was full of really smart people. And even though I struggled, I was at 11th grade at that time. And I mean, I had just finished my English classes, and all of a sudden I had to take advanced English literature. So it was very interesting having to sort of go all the way from learning English to reading English literature. But all of my friends are really nice, and they supported me, and I found out different ways to study. Like I started watching YouTube videos and all that, I realized that when there is a will, there certainly comes a way for you to achieve whatever you want. and I knew what I wanted. I wanted education. I wanted to prove that my parents didn't struggle all that for nothing. I wanted to really help them or accomplish the dreams that they weren't able to accomplish because they were in a refugee camp for most of their life. So that drive kept me going, and I started enjoying the work. I thought it was that end goal that was pushing me, getting an education, but I started enjoying studying, and just the act of reading and gaining knowledge. It's something that I started learning and enjoying for myself. And I think that was the reason why I was able to be so successful, because if I only had that goal of I need to justify my parents' sacrifice, I might not have been very successful. But the process of learning, I started enjoying. And because of that, I think I was able to continue motivating myself to study. And finally, I worked really hard, and somehow the miraculous thing happened. I got a scholarship to attend MIT, and everything else, is a continuation of that struggle. I went to MIT. It was very difficult in the beginning, but I met wonderful friends like Vivek who helped me out in my courses, and there were wonderful professors. I got to do a lot of interesting research, and I ended up studying computer science, which I find really interesting. And now I'm at Microsoft doing, what do I do? I teach computers now. I teach computers how to think, and that has been a lot of fun. It's not very easy. I think teaching you all is a lot easier than teaching computers because they're not very smart. And now I am at a place where I'm at a very comfortable position in life, and I look back at all the struggles that I've had and in life, and have nothing but gratefulness and a sense of satisfaction, and for all the things that I have accomplished, and all the things that have helped me get to where I am at today. So yeah, it's just an immense sense of gratitude. The thing tells me we have less than a minute.
Okay.
So no more. I don't know. We have questions.
No. What we'll do, kids, we'll just disconnect and connect back. Before Vivek does the math, you can talk to him and ask whatever else you want. Just very much allied to what we were talking about, Vikarma. So that's what it is. He enjoyed the journey, so it fit in right there. Okay, let's just disconnect and connect back. Okay, I'm happy you all turned in your cameras, and I hope you enjoyed his story.
Yes, thank you so much, Jyotsna. Thanks, Abhishkar. It's such a nice story. Thank you for sharing it with us. And I love the fact that you acknowledge your parents' struggle and appreciate it. And you said everything with a smile. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, we'll connect back again. Okay, let's just disconnect.
Sure.